After your beloved dog dies, how do you begin to heal your broken heart? Sheila Cooperman is a viewer and member of our dogcancer.com support community, and today she shares with us her true tale about Tucker, the dog she didn't know she needed, and how the act of writing about him is helping her to process this loss and 2 other losses as well.
Welcome to Dog Cancer Answers, where we help you help your dog with cancer.
Hello, I'm James Jacobson, founder of Dog Podcast Network, and it's my pleasure to host today's Dog Cancer Answers podcast and YouTube episode. Today we're speaking with Sheila Cooperman, but before we get into my conversation with Sheila, let me remind you that Dog Cancer Answers is the official podcast and YouTube channel of dogcancer.com, where veterinarians and veterinary oncologists and cancer researchers and science writers and technicians all give you better information today so that you have no regrets tomorrow. So Sheila Cooperman, thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm very happy to be here today.
Tell me about Tucker.
Well, we got Tucker about 8.5 years ago. I was a full-time school teacher, and I was never home. And my husband worked at home, and he was a dog owner, always. I was not. So he wanted a dog. And my feeling about that was total indifference. It was like, okay, go get yourself a dog. If you need to have companionship, get a dog. I was surrounded by children, teachers, staff, parents. I was getting all the stimulation I need, and if he wanted a dog, go get a dog. But I said, it's going to be your dog. You're going to take care of the dog because I leave at 6 and I don't get home until 4. So we did a little research, and he kept taking some online, like Match.com for dogs and owners. Yeah. And this Boykin Spaniel breed that no one had ever heard of in our household kept coming up as the perfect match. And we actually went and found a breeder because neither one of us, or at least me, I knew nothing about rescue. I knew nothing about dogs. And we got this little tiny, bubbly, little brown-eyed, brown-furred puppy, and he took care of the dog. But at some point, there was an enormous metamorphosis, and it became my dog emotionally. And I feel that my circadian rhythms merged with Tucker's. I don't know how to quite explain that, except that if there was something wrong with him, I knew it immediately. If he left, his bowl untouched, or he didn't jump quite as high up on the couch, or he, scratched his ear in the wrong way, I was like, there's something wrong with the dog. And in the beginning, David said, oh, it's okay. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, no, it's something. I'm going to take him to the vet. And after a while, since I was always 100% correct, nobody ever doubted me when I said we have to take Tucker to the vet. And Tucker followed me everywhere.
So what was it that first time when you had a suspicion to go to the vet? What was wrong with Tucker?
His ear. He's scratching his ear. Boykins are swimmers. Mm-hmm. They are bred. They're the state dog of South Carolina. I don't know if every state has a state dog, but South Carolina does. And they were bred for small fowl retrieval in the swamps of South Carolina. And they have slightly webbed feet in terms of their, paws. And all he liked to do was swim and catch balls. And he was shaking his head. I said, there's something wrong with the dog's ears. And that was the first time we realized that ear infections were relatively common for, dogs who lived in the water. Mm-hmm. And I just became acutely aware of always watching his ears and watching what he eats, because he was pretty finicky. He never had stools that were firm. And so I just became very aware of his rhythm.
Okay. And then that connection that you had with him was important, I guess, in the diagnosis of first realizing that there's something wrong with him beyond an ear infection.
Correct. And the way Tucker, the way the relationship developed between the dog and myself is my husband and I would be out, and somewhere around exit 42 or 38 or whatever the closest exit was to whatever house we were living in, I would start to get very excited about getting home. Because Tucker greeted me at the door. He greeted us at the door. It wasn't just me, but he had a certain squeal. Mm-hmm. He made a certain sound when we walked in the door or when I walked in the door. And so it started to become like a private family joke on the way home. I would say to David, is it going to be squeal-worthy, our return? He said, whenever you come home, it's squeal-worthy. And, Tucker would follow me downstairs. We had a standard routine. He'd get up when I get up. I get up very early. He would follow me downstairs. He would stay with me when I had my coffee. But the minute, it was very much like Pavlov, the minute he heard the jingle of my car keys, he ran right back upstairs to get back into bed with David. So I think we became a family. David has 2 grown children. I have 3 grown children. We live by ourselves. We have lots of grandchildren. Nobody lives with us, but the dog lived with us. And so we became a family of 3. Mm-hmm. And losing him was losing a family member. And
I'm going to get to the loss in a moment, but let's talk a little bit about the cancer journey that he was on, and what kind of cancer was it, and how long did you guys fight?
He had a mutated B-cell lymphoma. And the oncologist at Cornell, when she, got the cytology report back and read everything, she said, this is a rare mutation. Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of research on this. We have no idea how Tucker is going to respond to any of the treatment. Now, when I heard the word, it's consistent with lymphoma, 2 things happened to me. One was I felt like one of those cartoons where, there's someone staring at you and all you hear is wah, 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 wah. This woman's mouth was moving, and the only thing I heard was cancer. The only thing I heard was lymphoma. And what it did to me was trigger 2 previous human losses that I've had, a mother and a stepmother, that every time I heard the word lymphoma, I said, this is not good, because they both died within 6 months of a diagnosis. So
and they also had lymphoma. Mm-hmm. Both of them.
So hearing
it runs in the family.
Hearing that word, that's right. Hearing that word again, was triggered a lot, which is why I'm writing books. But she said they put him, she put him on prednisone, and my initial attitude, James, was, okay, maybe this mutation is the mutation that will take to the chemo better than any other form of lymphoma. Mm-hmm. Mutations don't always have to be bad, so that's where I put my head. This might be more treatable than any other type of cancer. That was a stage of grief. I was bargaining. Nothing worked, okay, for Tucker. The doxorubicin worked for 1 week. And after that, nothing worked. We had 8 weeks from time of diagnosis to the day we had, the day we had to take him out of his suffering. Okay. So it wasn't very long. He didn't know it.
He didn't know it. Tell me a little bit about the observations that, because you and Tucker were so connected, what do you reckon Tucker was thinking during those 8 weeks?
Tucker Had a very set routine. This was over the summer. And in the summer, there were two things that Tucker loved to do. Three things. Chase balls, and swim.
Okay.
And we have a pool. So at 7 o'clock in the morning, he was downstairs with a ball in his mouth, sitting at the door, waiting to go outside. And he would either chase the ball or swim for the ball for hours. And that never changed throughout his whole treatment. The only time I had to keep him out of the water was when he would come back from an infusion. I never knew Tucker. I mean, obviously we can't talk to him, but he wasn't sick. He didn't demonstrate any sickness. He had no side effects that he could feel. There was one or two times over the course of 8 or 9 weeks where I did have to take him back to Cornell for some stabilization. He had a GI bleed. They gave him, a medication for soft stools and diarrhea. But other than that, that happened once. He got up in the morning. He went swimming. I started cooking a cancer diet for him. I missed the farmer's dog niche by a couple of years. I got real good at cooking the diet. And his stools were never better. They were horrible for 8 years until I started cooking this diet, and then they were great.
And that was the diet that you learned about in the Dog Cancer Survival Guide.
Yep. I read that book twice. It became my Bible. And I found that it just made me feel not alone. And I think that was really the beginning of my wanting to be involved with, posting and writing, because the feeling of isolation and the feeling that you are all alone and you're the only one suffering this, and the why me, why my dog, and all of those thousands of questions that one has, I found a great deal of support with the community of people on the Facebook page and the book.
You've become prolific. You've become quite prolific and an amazing support to so many people in our dog cancer support group on Facebook. And that reminds me to tell you that you should join dogcancer.com's private support group on Facebook. It has over 10,000 members and it is growing every day. It's really active and it is a great resource for you. You can find a direct link to the group at dogcancer.com/support. In our group, you'll find amazing people and very little dogma. In fact, we aim for none, and good information from reliable sources. You'll also find lots of emotional support from fellow dog lovers who know exactly how you feel because they've been through it themselves. It is the official support group of dogcancer.com. And if you haven't yet been to dogcancer.com, which is our main website, I hope you'll check it out, because that is where the real magic happens. We have amassed a team, what we call Team Dog, that now numbers over 40 people. We have veterinarians and veterinary oncologists and cancer researchers and science writers, all working really hard to deliver on our promise to you. That promise is better information today so that you have no regrets tomorrow. On dogcancer.com, you'll find hundreds of informative, medically accurate, and frequently updated articles, videos, and references. If you've got any questions about dog cancer, head to dogcancer.com to help find the answers. And if you don't see the answer on our site, well, submit a ticket so that we can either find it for you, we're very friendly, or write an article about that topic. And just like our Facebook group, all of that is free. It won't cost you a penny. It's at dogcancer.com. And now back to Sheila, who joined our support group last year and posts her latest writings every week. And then soon after discovering the cancer, when did you get involved in the Facebook group?
I got involved in the Facebook group. The first post went up on August 12th. Not in the Facebook group yet, but just in general on Facebook. I was supposed to go to a 50th high school reunion. I'm showing my age here on the week of August 10th.
The school was built 50 years ago, is what you're saying.
Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. And I was leaving for the weekend, and Tucker, obviously, he was at the state of his treatments where he was only seeing the oncologist every 2 weeks, and he was panting a lot. Now, I know that panting could be a definite side effect of the prednisone, but somehow here was a good example. Somehow this panting was different than the regular prednisone panting. It was harder. It was more shallow. It was coming more frequently. We were sitting outside. I said to David, there's something. It's not just prednisone. Let's take them. I'm going away for the weekend. Let's just take them. And we did take them to the regular vet, and she took an x-ray. This was on a Wednesday. She took an x-ray, and she said, well, I'm going to send this x-ray to Cornell just so that they have it. And 2 days later on that Friday, there aren't a lot of vets that are open at 5 o'clock on a Friday evening. So we took them to Cornell for stabilization because of the panting. And it was that night when we got there that they said, your dog is going to end up in respiratory distress or have a heart attack because he can't breathe. Now, again, and I say this to people whoever listens, he didn't show any pain. I never felt that Tucker was in pain. He whatever discomfort the dog had with panting, I can't speak for him. But he was running and swimming and jumping until that moment when we took him to Cornell. The next day, which was on August 12th, I woke up with COVID. So I lost my dog on the 11th, and I woke up with COVID on the 12th, and that's when I started posting.
So it was only after Tucker passed that you started posting.
That I came to the Facebook organization's Facebook page. But all through Tucker's sickness, I posted on my personal
on your personal page
about the journey.
And then you, as you said, you read the book a couple of times. You joined the group after Tucker had passed, and then talk about that a little bit in terms of the experience of being able to through the grieving process, be able to help other dog lovers with their own dog cancer journeys.
Well, I post every Friday. I posted one today. It's 6 months today, 26 weeks. And as a human being, I was a teacher for 26 years. I have a doctorate in literacy, and I'm a writer. I've always written. I've always written to poetry, or I've written to work through whatever, issues or thinking I have. I'm a firm believer in the power of words. And so I started posting just what I was feeling without any barriers, no guardians, it was stream of consciousness and how I was feeling and why I felt so alone and what did I do wrong? I mean, I think the posts seemed to follow a continuum, literal. And then I read Kubler-Ross's book again, The Stages
Elizabeth
of Grief.
Kubler-Ross.
Yeah, and I went, oh my goodness, I'm doing this again. And I realized there was no big difference between losing a parent and losing a dog. And then people started to write to me and say, thank you for saying what I feel, but I can't express. Or thank you for putting my feelings into words. And, thank you for being so naked and vulnerable. And I think that I really was actually taken aback. I was surprised by the amount of support that I not only got for my own pain, but the amount of support that I was really able to give other people. tear up a little. If the words, that I was putting out there was able to help anybody else, then that became a goal for me. That became a goal.
Are you surprised?
By people's reactions?
Yeah.
I'm not. Well, yes and no. I'm not surprised because I'm I'm not narcissistic enough to think that I'm the only one in the world that goes through pain.
Right.
And that, my dog is the only dog in the world. I mean, everybody who has a dog, who loves their dog, who grieves their dog, feels the same way. And I think I think there's a lot. I think there's a pattern to it. Like, what did I do wrong? What did I miss? Why me? What could I have done sooner? And I think a lot of people, feel that way. So my goal is to help people at least put a word to what they're feeling and to validate how they're feeling. Because even though I have not come across people who've said to me, "Oh, get over it. It's just a dog," because my whole family is involved with dogs. I know that there are people who do, and so run into that, and who feel very isolated and alone. And my thought is, if my words can give anybody a sense of feeling validated and accepted, and feeling that they have voice and someone's listening, that's what I feel like that's going to be very helpful.
Well, it has been helpful. It's been helpful for lots of people. And that's why we want to, let folks who are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast on YouTube know about it, because there are so many people who could benefit from just hearing about the odyssey of what you and Tucker went through for those 8 weeks. And your eloquence is quite striking. And so in the notes from today's show, we'll post some links to some of our favorite posts that you've posted in Dog Cancer Support, which you can find at dogcancersupport.com, which is a quick link to our Facebook group. And the thing is, this is going to live beyond the confines of Facebook. You're planning a book.
I am planning a book. I'm planning several. And I wasn't planning on writing a book. My husband is a wonderful photographer, and we have hundreds of pictures. And all I wanted to do was take the wonderful pictures of Tucker and put them in one of those, books that you can get from any one of these, photography websites. So I didn't. So I opened up a Google slideshow, Google presentation, and I uploaded Tucker's picture, and I was just planning on putting a caption there, but a story came. A children's story came. And the story came, it was about an angel, because I always referred to Tucker as my angel. He was he was my angel. He knew he would put his little schnozzle, which we called it, his, nozzle on my neck, and he was my angel. So the story came to be about an angel that comes to the door, and a little girl sees this angel and says to her mother in the story, "There's an angel at the door." The name of the book is going to be, it's not out yet, An Angel with Four Legs. And this angel comes to this grieving house because there is a mother who, they lost the father, the husband's gone, and this angel comes to the house to bring this family back together. And he does. And of course, the dog is, based on my dog. And the picture book uses names, nicknames that I had for the dog. And then when I first met with the publisher, I told her about she asked me about Tucker, so I started to talk to her a little bit about how I write every week about the dog. And she said, well, my goodness, have you ever thought about publishing a grief journal for adults? And I said, no, but why not? So all of the posts that I've been putting up for the last 26 weeks are also going to be curated into another text. But with that text, there's going to be an integration of the similarities in loss between losing a human and losing a dog.
Have these writing projects been cathartic for you?
So cathartic.
Tell me about that. Tell me about the benefit that you get from just putting your hands on a keyboard and communicating this.
The grief that I felt when I first lost Tucker over the beginning weeks, there was something that I felt about my reaction to his loss that seemed, and I don't know if this is the right way to express it, over the top. I got unbelievably depressed. Not depression. I mean, I was still able to work and do this, but Tucker was the first thing on my mind in the morning. He was the last thing on my mind at night. I had a very hard time with the concept of the permanence of his no longer being here. So because writing has just always been something that I do, I just started writing. And I found that once I started to put, words on the paper, I didn't feel as agitated. I felt that I could make a connection with my grief and a connection with how I was feeling by immortalizing it on paper. Because one of the biggest things that I always feel is that everybody has a story. Everybody is a writer. The difference between people who write and people who don't is just picking up a pen and doing it, because everyone has a story to tell. And as I started to write, I realized that I was clearly working through a lot of other types of grief. So I'll give you one example. It's a tough one to listen to, but I'll give you one example if this fits in. I lost my mother when I was 15. And when we were away, and when I saw my father, my sister and I were in California, and they called us home. And when we got to the airport, we discovered that my mother had passed away about an hour earlier. She had been in the hospital. She took a turn for the worse. Nobody expected that she was going to pass. And when I went to the hospital to see her, I was very shocked. I was 15, about what she looked like, about the color of her face, about the coolness of her skin, because I did touch it, and much to the dismay of the nurses. And this was, by the way, was in 1969, and things were very different in 1969. Hospitals were very private. They didn't give people a lot of information. I pushed past the nurse. I pushed her out of my way. She didn't want me to go in the room. And I remember that I wanted very much to kiss my mother, but I didn't. I was afraid. When Tucker died, when he died in my arms, the very first thing I did was bury my face in his neck and his fur. And it occurred to me that what I didn't do in 1969, I closed in 2023 with the dog. And when I wrote about that, somehow I was released of the anger, because I felt sort of mad at myself that I didn't give my mother a final hug goodbye. I gave Tucker a final hug goodbye. That circle closed, and it got resolved.
And while you gave Tucker that hug, you weren't consciously thinking about it. You weren't saying, this kind of closes everything. But through the process of writing about it, that's where you saw it.
Yep. And that's why when, she suggested, have you ever done a grief journal? I thought, you know what, this might be a good idea, because as I'm thinking about it, there are a lot of similarities. My mother's death took me by surprise. Yeah. Tucker's death took us by surprise. We thought he had a tick-borne illness. Mm-hmm. The vet said, I think he has a tick-borne illness. So the writing helps me clarify in my mind, my feelings and how I can help other people.
Yeah. Well, and you don't need to be an author. You can just, join us on our support group and write those stories, because it's hearing stories like yours, Sheila, that make such a difference for so many people to help them go through this process. And of course, other things in our forum and at dogcancer.com as well, to help you battle and hopefully do well through this process of dog cancer. Dr. Sheila Cooperman, and I say doctor because you are a PhD in literature, right? Is that
in literacy?
In literacy, okay. Well, we appreciate you being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And if you have any questions or would like me to send you some additional information, I'll be very happy to do so.
And I'd like to thank you, dog lover, for watching. I hope you'll like this video and subscribe to this channel to get more helpful videos from veterinarians and veterinary oncologists, cancer researchers, and dog lovers just like yourself. All of that is here to help you manage and cope with your dog's cancer diagnosis. Please check the show notes for helpful links to dogcancer.com and other videos to help you help your dog. On behalf of all of us here at Dog Podcast Network, I'm James Jacobson, and I'd like to wish you and your dog a very warm aloha.
Thank you for listening to Dog Cancer Answers. If you'd like to connect, please visit our website at dogcancer.com or call our listener line at 808-868-3200. And here's a friendly reminder that you probably already know. This podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It's not meant to take the place of the advice you receive from your dog's veterinarian. Only veterinarians who examine your dog can give you veterinary advice or diagnose your dog's medical condition. Your reliance on the information you hear on this podcast is solely at your own risk. If your dog has a specific health problem, contact your veterinarian. Also, please keep in mind that veterinary information can change rapidly. Therefore, some information may be out of date. Dog Cancer Answers is a presentation of Maui Media in association with Dog Podcast Network.